Welcome to the Klein ISD Fox Elementary virtual tour. I'm Corey Juneman, and big thanks to Klein ISD for letting us virtually tour their building, and IBI for putting everything together. Just kind of a couple of quick housekeeping items. We've got this session is being recorded, and if everyone could please make sure that their computers are muted. And if you have any questions, you can send it through the chat messenger. And afterwards, we will have a Q&A. I wanted to congratulate Harul Vyas with Stantec and Brenda Garcia with Goose Creek ISD for joining the board this year as members at large. And just a couple of quick updates on our upcoming events. We've got the 2020 Virtual Learningscapes next month, November 4th through the 6th. So if you can go and register. We've got the annual Sporting Clay Tournament for the Gulf Coast chapter on November 16th. You can register online. And we're looking at doing a happy hour, kind of virtual happy hour for the holidays during December. And everything is in motion for next year's Southern Region Conference in Austin, April 5th through the 9th. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Danny at this point.
Okay, welcome everybody. Glad you're all able to join us during lunch today. This is our one of our first times to do a, can you see? There it is. Okay, hopefully everybody can see the presentation. And so if you start to have a little bit of lag on your screen as we're going through this, try turning off your camera just to conserve the bandwidth coming to your location. But today we're going to have a virtual tour of Fox Elementary School. And with me today are Molly Rawl and Tom Haggerty of Klein. And there they are right there. They'll be helping us give their opinion of how what it is we're looking at as we work our way through the school. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And I'll admit that person. So, and there's our project team. Solis O'Brien was the MEP, FDP was the food service, brewer engineering. We had environments, and Gamma was our contractor. We want to have a big thank you to Mr. Robertson, the Associate Superintendent of the Facility and Services at Klein. And of course, Tom and Molly are on the call. So they were a huge part of this, this project. We're going to talk some more about what led to the picture in the upper left-hand corner in a moment. But those children took part in the process, in the planning process, in a separate charrette that we had for the children. And so here's the school. It's a almost 120,000 square foot new elementary. It's an evolution of previous floor plans. It kind of had the same ideas from previous schools. Wait a minute. Oh, Kelly, hold on. Okay. I got too far over. Sorry, folks. Construction cost, $25 million. The key here is this is a brand new school for Klein ISD. And one of the things that they wanted to look at was they wanted to really have a real involved process for planning this facility. So they gave us, we worked with the administration, and they gave us the opportunity to kind of evolve our way of thinking for getting to the student voice within student-centered design. And as a part of that, they allowed us to, during the planning and visioning sessions, we actually ran a parallel set of charrettes. We've done charrettes in the past where we included future students of the facility, but we always worried that if the students were really being heard amongst the adults. And so we actually did the exact same charrette for the kids that we did for the principals and administrators of Klein ISD. And I think you'll see here that we had really good results. And I know Tom or Mala, if you want to talk about that at all.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a great process. And we still hear about it. One of the participants was Jenny McGowan at the time, who's now Dr. McGowan. And I believe one of her children
son
was in that too. So she still talks about how great that was.
And so what the charrette led to is this is actually the kids' gaming piece on the far left. They put together a campus and it evolved to the middle drawing. And at the same time, the staff was doing theirs. And you're going to notice one of the things that we're proudest of is of the two charrettes came back together and they talked about and they sold each other their two schemes, one from the students and one from the adults. And at the end of the day, it was the student scheme that actually carried the day, and that was what led the design for the new project. And so you'll see a lot of student voice in this new facility. A fairly typical site. They opted for a one-story elementary school, and they had plenty of site to pull that off. And so what you see here is a fairly spread out campus. But what we want to point out is the outdoor learning space in the middle of the school. They were very keen on the idea of outdoor learning and having a courtyard. But at the same time, this was deep in the middle of when school security was at the height of leading all design for schools. And so we do have an outdoor learning center that is completely isolated from the outside, and it's behind the security vestibule, and it's a very safe space. But for the rest of the site, it's kind of typical stuff, a generous car drop-off line, buses separated, but it's spread out because all of the spaces except music have glazing. And this, we'll dive further into the floor plan, but Tom or Molly, do you want to talk about how we kind of spread out for the overall? They must be muted.
We were, sorry. Pushing different buttons. Okay, so yeah, all of the, I'm gonna call them the wings are all spread out what I'm gonna call, I call it the loop. So we have the central core that everything funnels off of. You have your cafeteria, your classrooms, the admin area, the gym, everything is there and it's all spread out. The kids were, the only thing that we didn't do is the students who designed this project would have preferred that 5th grade be next to kindergarten so that they could help the little kids. But, do you have anything else?
No.
Okay.
Good.
And so with that, and one of the really cool things is this is the motto of the school. They adopted the idea that the students were a part of the design, and it appears on their stationery and on their souvenir cups and things like that, that the project is student-centered, student-designed, and student-owned. And so we're really proud of the way that turned out. So we can jump right in. Well, first we're going to talk about the entry and the administration area. Tom, Molly? Muted again?
Unmuted.
Okay, we're good. So as with all school districts, right, safety has become a critical component. But what we struggle with is we still wanted the front to be inviting. We didn't want to create like a police environment where you're locked in a cage before you're allowed into the building. So we opted for a lot of glass and a lot of glazing, a lot of visibility to the outside. I think you'll probably see that in the next image. Right,
So,
right. Rather than being in a closed-in box, it's a very open space.
And not very often do you need to have do you actually need the lights that are in there?
Oh yeah, because all the glazing for sure.
Yeah.
So it's a very typical kind of security vestibule situation like we see in most school districts nowadays. They're caught in the front vestibule. All visitors have to buzz into the front door. Then they're still in a vestibule that has to buzz through to get into the reception area. But still, we want to balance a warm and inviting place for the children and the visitors along with that security. Just kind of work through there. And then once you've cleared the reception, then you're free to join. And as you see, this central spine kind of joins straight through to the library, all natural lit. It's a very bright, inviting space for the kids. One of the things that we talked about during the charrettes and while we were planning with the staff was they were dealing with kind of dark spaces for teachers' lounge and workrooms. And so we were able to get them on the outside of the building and get some daylighting in there. But the really interesting thing came with the idea that we arrived at with them to combine those two spaces into one to make it a more communal space for the staff. Tom, Molly?
Yeah, absolutely. And it also doubles as a larger space where they can have maybe a meeting, whereas before in those small little workrooms, you're buried in the middle of the school or a lounge. Now they can have even a small PLC in there or some other event.
So everybody keeps asking us what the FPC is, and we keep telling them it's the Faculty Planning Center. So it's both your workroom
Right.
and your lounge, and a place where you can have your mailboxes as well.
Near the front of the school is the early childhood area. It also includes the area for the special services and special needs. One thing I do want to point out, you guys are going to see, we would much prefer to have a lot of kids and teachers and parents in our pictures, but the timing of the opening of the school and the pandemic didn't allow that. So just kind of bear with us. We greatly prefer populated pictures, but we just weren't able to make that happen. But the early childhood is near the front. Also, there was a lot of talk about the special needs portion of the school being near the front. Went back and forth with the staff about having their own entry, but at the time it was decided that because of security, they're going to go ahead and use the front. And is there any other thing special about that, Molly, Tom?
Yeah, just that we also kept it all contained in its own little area, right? So they can close themselves off from everything else. Occasionally we hear that they have runners and other problems where the way this is set up, they're kind of just in that spot. You can close the doors. You don't have to necessarily worry about the runners and that kind of thing. That was important to me.
And this area also has all of the extra additional administrators who are associated with the special population, has all of their offices and a place for a conference space. So they all are centrally located and they're not having to walk across the building to get to a ARD or something of that nature.
Right. And still wanting to get light into those classrooms, but understanding the needs of those kids, we elevated all the windows because there's always a potential for a kid to run through a window apparently. So that was big to them also.
And there's the FP Center that Molly was talking about. And the library. And so the library is an open type library. You don't go through doors to get into it. As a matter of fact, you're going to see there's actually a very interesting ways in which to access the library. But central to the school, also central off the learning courtyard. They have a fairly large, they added it close to the art, which is very interesting for makerspace opportunities. And they have a media center that can be used for broadcasting. Molly? Tom?
All right, so our slide. Yes, we have a slide. And if you decide you want to go down it, we won't take pictures. But we have gotten a fire marshal to go down it. The principals.
I think you've gone down
I've
probably
gone
5
it
times.
about 5 times. But we have a slide. We also have reading nooks. You can see to the left there that allow kids to sit in there and read a book, or teachers to crawl through. There is a small, what I'm going to call a doorway, that is reminiscent of the book The Borrowers, and you have the littles who come out and borrow things from the humans. So I look at that and I think of that, and it's just an amazing space for kids to sit in and enjoy. It's bright, it's colorful. You have the Orioles on the outside, which allow the kids to sit in there and read. We have a Scrabble wall that can also dual as a graph, so they can do math problems there, or whatever they decide they want to do. Danny was saying it's also connected to our art room, our art classroom, which allows the connectivity for them to use art or even the library as a maker space.
And the idea of the slide, it was a reward slide. It wasn't you bring in a class to play like out in a playground.
The other thing that came out of the charrette is the library is built for the entire idea of, those of you that know the watering holes, campfires, and caves idea, just multiple size spaces for children and groups of children of various size groups to meet and collaborate within the library. And inspirational architecture. This is an Oriole that Molly was talking about. 4 kids, 1 kid, just a space away from others. And this is the art room. It was art room combination makerspace. Outdoor access to the courtyard, bright daylight. All the finishes are made for whether there's going to be paint or not. Tom, you want to add anything to that?
I think you've got it covered.
Okay, we'll keep going. This is more of the art space. And so now we'll work on the major circulation and the courtyard. It does have plants in it, and you do have to access it to take care of it, but we provided double-sized gates that you could drive a small tractor through in order to maintain it. But these gates remain locked during the course of the day, and they're all access control. So you can move within the secure zone through the courtyard during the course of the day. And the courtyard is experiential in that you get a sense of it within the library, you get a sense of it within the cafeteria, but also at some points in the major circulation routes around the school, you get to experience that courtyard as well. Kind of an overhead drone shot of the courtyard. There's kind of a lot going on. The primary thing that we was asked for from the owner was, an outdoor courtyard without a shade structure really is not going to work for us. It just won't get used. And so we were able to fit a classroom size shade structure out in the learning corridor. But you'll see there's some language learning going on. There's an atom going on, feet and meters in the pavement. There's a lot going on, and you can see that it attaches to the art space, to the library. It's a really nice space for the kids. Right, Molly?
The other nice connection too would be the connection to the cafeteria. So the principal potentially could let students as a reward eat outside, or when families come up to eat, they can go outside.
We get a little bit of drainage there, but this is the outdoor learning. It's stepped down so that the kids can see over one another, but it's all accessible. The language learning, that's the main entry through there.
So what's nice about the courtyard is if you stand there in the middle, you can see directly through the library, through to the front entry, to the parking lot. And then you can also see it. You can also see the bus parking lot from it as well.
More of the courtyard. And again, the courtyard, central to everything in the school. Art comes close to it, the cafeteria, music, gym. It's really the heart of the school, the library and the courtyard. Kind of a standard cafeteria, as Molly said, the opportunity to have outside shared space. Lots of color. Graphics are still on the way when the photographer was out there, so there'll be some more interest on this wall. Fairly typical kind of cafetorium with the stage inside the cafeteria. Again, versatile seating, nice hard surface, durable materials. Nice, efficient kitchen. And again, more spaces like in the library where maybe it's a reward for somebody to eat in here, or your parents have come and are visiting you at lunchtime. And if it's a nice day, then the lunch can spill out onto the courtyard. Okay, and so that takes us to the mods, and the mods are a part where the charrette really shined and where we really got to come up with some ideas that are really going to serve the student needs. As you see in each grade mod, there's a pretty sizable kind of common space between all the classrooms. The district had the idea, and we came up with the idea together, to rather than have dedicated science rooms, is use that program square footage and increase these spaces within each mod so that you have a really, really, really flexible space. This is a countertop that has water in it. And so because this classroom has an overhead coiling door and this classroom has an overhead coiling door, this space can serve a class, 2 classes, or the entire grade level can be out here for events based on science or health that would need a countertop and water, or pull-out spaces, or, I mean, it's an endless number of ideas that can come out of here. They're also open to getting away from standard classroom shapes, and so the school district actually polled their school to see whether they wanted L's, fat L's, and a wide variety of class sizes. And so this is kind of where we landed with the district. And the other thing I'll add is each of the wings has a self-contained area that, in addition to student restrooms, they have the staff restroom, a custodial space, an IT space, a workroom, and a meeting space. So that's been very good for the staff. And understand that all of this is all open. The security really happens, the access really happens right here. That's why we have doors at the front of the mods. You want to add anything to that, Tom or Molly?
I think it would be important to talk about the garage doors in the classrooms also. So that's something that we started a few years ago at a high school, having like operable glass walls so a classroom could spill out into another space. And we struggled a little bit because we went with like a modern fold or some other operable partition, and they were way too heavy and bulky for people to use. So now we've moved to a garage door. The first time we mentioned that, a lot of people kind of looked at us with a puzzled look, but it's worked out great. They're counterbalanced. Anybody can raise and lower them. And it's really worked out well, and everybody's pretty much in love with this idea now.
Molly, do you want to talk about the?
The other thing I would mention is that in the middle, close to where the restrooms are, there are 2 classrooms that allow the grade levels to flex in size. So if you have a large 4th grade class coming up, you don't have to have 4th grade in 2 different hallways. You can have it all contained in one. So those 2, the classrooms labeled BL, those will be allowed to flex, and they could either be a 4th grade or a 5th grade. Or if you need to pull some from elsewhere, you have that ability.
Again, soft carpet kind of in the circulation spaces, but durable, cleanable surfaces in the middle where you might have science or art happening. Flexible furniture, you can move it around very easily.
We also put a large number of built-in cubbies that also served as seating around the perimeter of the spaces.
Thank you. Typical classroom. Lots of daylight in this school. This is clerestory lighting to keep the daylighting into the middle of the mods. Open, durable, cleanable restrooms, bottle fillers. Another shot with the door open that just shows it how much space is really out here and how many kids you could really lead in a demonstration from this countertop here in the middle of the space. But when you don't need that, there's plenty of room to pull out to help kids with some one-on-one or some 2 or 3-on-1 type instruction.
And with all of the windows, you still have the ability to have a visual connection to those students from each classroom.
And so this is our school. It was a very large site that Klein had. There will be a future middle school across the street, but it was a green site. You know, lots of water, so there's a lot of detention going on, but access is not only from that small neighborhood to the top of this picture, but actually out to a major artery through Klein. Plenty of room on the car drop-off to keep the cars off the public roads. The buses come around to the back, and that allows them to stage kids in either or the gym or the cafeteria. They're both fully accessible to the bus parking area. Very typical kind of age-appropriate playground equipment. You see here the difference in the special needs students' windows. It's just set up a little different because they've got different light needs. But a lot of daylight in this school and a lot of bright sunlight. Some passive solar items around the facility just to help with the glare on some of the walls that get a little brighter daylight. Typical playground. And that is our tour, unless there are questions. Or Molly or Tom, would y'all like to say anything else or go back to look at any pictures that we might have went past too quickly?
I'm good. I think you covered it.
All right, Kelly, were there any questions?
There is nothing in the chat.
All right, well, we managed to do a 1-hour virtual tour in 32 minutes. This was recorded. Carla will have a recording of this if you need to share it with somebody that was unable to see it. Just personally, I again want to thank Klein and Molly and Tom for the opportunity. We don't we don't get a lot of chances to work with kids that closely on a project, and it was really not just fun, but it was enlightening to see how much they can add to the process. And other than that, I think we are complete. Molly, Tom?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We appreciate you joining us today. Go enjoy your lunches.
Thanks so much.
Yes.
Great school.
Bye,
Beautiful school.
everybody. Thank you.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for having